Hello, my name is Neil Atkinson and I've come to Madrid to speak to the Spanish Energy Club about the IEA's 5-year oil market forecast, which we published recently. It's called Oil 2019 Analysis and Forecast to 2024. And I'll just run through some of the key points that have emerged from our research affecting global supply and demand for oil and some very interesting findings with respect to refining and trading. So the first thing we'd like to look at is oil supply, and it will come as perhaps no surprise to know that in the next few years the biggest source of oil supply growth is going to be the United States as the shale revolution continues to grow apace. But the United States isn't the only country where there's going to be increases in production. We also see increases in Brazil, in Guyana, in Norway, in the UAE and in Iraq. So the United States isn't alone, but the United States is the single largest source of growth in oil production. On the other hand, of course, there are always countries where growth is not taking place, and indeed quite the reverse. And for the purposes of our analysis out to 2024, we've assumed that both Iran and Venezuela will remain outside global markets throughout the forecast period. That's not a forecast as such, but it's a working assumption that we have made. So we're seeing oil production grow in the United States and some other countries. That will go up by about 5.7 million barrels a day, something like that. But of course, offsetting those fallbacks, those increases are of course declines in some countries, Iran and Venezuela, as I mentioned earlier. But the OPEC countries as a whole will see their effective production capacity actually go down by about 400,000 barrels a day, because Iran and Venezuela are going down, and that will very much offset increases we expect in Iraq and Libya and the United Arab Emirates. Countries such as Saudi Arabia remain pretty stable. So we've got global oil supply going up on a net basis by about 5.3 million barrels a day. Meanwhile, on the demand side of the balance, we see demand continuing to grow strongly through to 2024. There is certainly no sign of peak oil demand. Demand will go up by just over 7 million barrels a day, up by about 1.2 million barrels a day or so on average, with China and India, as they have done for many years, being the leading sources of demand growth, just under 45% of the total global growth from those two countries. One of the key factors behind demand growth in the next few years is petrochemicals, where we're seeing the United States and China invest in a very large number of petchems projects. In the United States, they benefit from cheaper feedstock because of the shale revolution. In China, it's becoming a more consumer-focused economy, so the demand for plastics, for example, is increasing very sharply. So overall, demand growth continues at a fairly solid pace in the next few years. A very important issue that is taking place within the overall demand picture is the new marine fuel regulations which are being introduced by the International Maritime Organization at the beginning of 2020. This will involve a drastic reduction in the utilization of high sulfur fuel oil, a big increase in the use of marine gas oil, and new very low sulfur fuel oils. So although the size of the market will remain the same and indeed continue to grow, there is a dramatic switch in terms of the composition of marine fuels that we're expecting to see over the next few years. This could lead to an increase in prices, indicatively of about 20%, but that will remain to be seen. Now, as far as refining is concerned, there is a big increase in net capacity in the next few years, led by Asia and the Middle East. And that is going to be a challenge for refiners, because the demand for oil products made from refineries is only going to go up by about half the increase in capacity. So refining faces a challenge, and we could see refinery closures around the world as they adapt to a more challenging environment. And the other final point I'd like to make is with respect to global oil trade. And this again comes back to the theme of the United States. And alongside production growth from the US, we are going to see a very large increase in exports from the US over the next 5-year period. And we think that by 2024, gross exports of crude oil and products from the US will overtake that of Russia. and will come very close indeed to the levels that we expect from Saudi Arabia. So we have another example where the United States is going to be a very, very important player in global oil markets, in addition to just the production increases that we're all used to. So there's a lot more research in the 150 pages contained in the IEA's document, Oil 2019, Analysis and Forecast to 2024. You're very welcome to go to the IEA website to find it, and I hope if you do find it and read it, you'll find the findings to be of great interest. Thank you very much.